The Story of George Washington Carver, written by Eva Moore. Chapter 10. George wrote letters to the Milholland from Simpson. In one letter he wrote, "The people are very kind to me here, and the students are wonderfully good. They took it into their heads I was working too hard and had not enough home comforts. So they clubbed together and bought me a whole set of furniture, chairs, table, bed, and such things as I needed." George had many friends at Simpson. The younger students liked to take walks in the woods with him. He told them about every plant, every kind of rock. As they walked in the woods, they heard birds singing. "Listen," George would say. Top of page 52. "That's a chickadee." He could tell any bird by the song it sang, even when he could not see it. No teacher was as interesting to the students as their friend George. George opened a laundry to earn money. He was busy all the time. He read his lessons while he scrubbed clothes. He read some more as he ate his lunch. Sometimes some friends would come to visit, and George would go on reading and working while he talked with them. The class George liked most of all was art class. His art teacher, Miss Budd, thought he was a very good painter, and she knew how much he loved to paint. But she knew, too, that it was hard for even the best artists to make money. It would be harder, maybe even impossible, for a black artist to make a living. She told George what she thought. Your paintings are beautiful, George, but artists die poor. Isn't there something else you would like to do? You know so much about growing things. Maybe you should change to science. You would be doing work you enjoy and still make a good living." George, top of page 53. George wanted very much to be a painter, but he knew Miss Budd was right, and he began to think about his place in the world. He had been hurt many times because he was black. Yet he knew that other blacks were not as lucky as he. Most of his people were poor and poorly educated. Worst of all, they had no hope. If he became a scientist or a teacher, maybe he could help his people. Maybe he could do something that would give them hope for a better life. Miss Budd wanted to help George. "My father is a science teacher at Iowa State College." Underneath the map is a caption. George Washington Carver's love for learning led him from Diamond Grove, Missouri, to Ames, Iowa, with many stops in between. Top of page 54. She told him, "It is a very good school. You could learn every kind of science there. If you want me to, I will write to Father and ask him to get you into Iowa State College for the summer term." George had been to Simpson College for less than a year. In May 1891, he moved to the town of Ames, Iowa, 50 miles away. He began to study at Iowa State College. Iowa State College was a bigger college than Simpson. It was a college of agriculture. Most of the students were there to learn the best ways to grow crops and to raise cattle and other livestock. They had to learn a lot of science. George signed up for science classes. geology, botany, chemistry, and zoology. George was a popular student at Iowa State. The students and the teachers liked him. But one thing really bothered George. He was not allowed to eat with his friends in the dining room. He was told to have his meals with the field hands down in the basement. George wrote to a friend of his at Simpson, Mrs. Liston. He told her how bad this made him feel. Top of page 55. Mrs. Liston came to visit him right away. At lunchtime, she was invited to eat with the students and the teachers in the dining room. But she would not leave George. She went down to the basement and ate with him and the field hands. After that, George's friends felt ashamed. They did not care what the rules were. They wanted George to eat with them in the dining room, and he did. The more George learned in college, the more he wished all his people could learn. Many black people in the South were farmers, but they knew little or nothing about the soil and how to grow good crops. If I can teach farmers how to make better farms, George thought, I will be doing something good for my people. He wrote to Mrs. Milholland, I am taking better care of myself than I have before. I realize that God has work for me to do, and I must be careful of my health.